All right, real fast before we get started, just vote for me. Do you like the chest camera or do you like the handlebar camera? This is last week's race. This is this week's race. Vote down below so I know which one to choose going forward. Anyway, this is week 2 of the slow crit, practice crit here in San Luis Obispo. Look at the turnout, even better than last week. Same general folks. We have a bunch of VFR riders. I am not racing as teammates with VFR, so I'm racing solo in this case. We have Maddie, who's turned up in front of me, my teammate from last year, and a bunch of other hitters like Lance here shaking his legs out on the right. And the truth is, I was thinking about maybe not even making a video about this week's race because it gets a little bit wild at the end. We're going to see in a little bit. Oh, shout out to the dude with riding with just like tennis shoes on the left, by the way. That's kind of cool. Or maybe they're gravel shoes or something. Hard to say. Anyway, probably 50 riders in this field. Crazy finish. Let's dive into things. Okay, so for the first 10 or so minutes of this race, it was generally just really fast. I mean, there wasn't like a specific moment where the breakaway got away, the elastic snapped, and the race settled down. It was just relentless attacks each and every time we went up and over this little climb. And for those who don't know, this backside of the course, shortly before the finish line, has a maybe 200 meter long, like 4 to 5% climb, and that was like the launching off point for a lot of these attacks. You can see each time we went over this section of the course, somebody was just nuking it. It just kind of required, 700-800 watts, sometimes even more, to remain in contact. And in these circumstances, when attacks are flying this early, this often, keep in mind, guys, these laps are like 90 seconds long, so these attacks are coming pretty frequent. It's important to remain in really good position because what can end up happening is you can get caught behind a split, there could be a dropped rider in front of you, and you could have good fitness and not even realize that you're getting dropped. So it's important to remain in good position, and that's exactly what I was doing here. Until Dylan jumps across, he uses that good old slingshot attack from like 10 wheels back, gets a head of steam, and comes blowing past the front of the group. And this is when I finally have to see the front. I come out of the draft and I have to, and guys, this is painful. I'm spending a lot of time. And this is why that slingshot attack that Dylan just executed perfectly is so successful, it's so potent, because look at all the time I spent out of the draft. Imagine if he was in front of me doing that type of effort. I would have been spending that whole time in his draft. It makes a big difference. Anyway, this is the reason why we're making this effort. We have John Borselman on the front, a gravel racer with the God knows how many, 450 watt FTP or something. We have Lance in his wheel, Joseph from ButcherBox behind him, of course Dylan and me. The funny thing is, though, I said, I don't know if you could hear it in the GoPro, I was like, big gap. But we're all kind of looking at each other, and I think we all realize that we're tired, and we also don't really want to work for each other in this specific scenario. And we're about to hit this hill again. So even though we have this big gap, we're still not falling into rotation quickly, and Joseph just capitalizes on this opportunity, like, okay, a selection from the selection. Joseph goes one more time up this climb, and this ends up drawing out what would be the breakaway of the day. I hesitate to even call it a breakaway. It's more of a selection because it's like 12 riders, and like I've said in videos before, there is a sweet spot for a breakaway. It's generally like 3 to 5 riders that can coordinate and rotate poles effectively on the front. When you have a big group like this of 12, what ends up happening is there's always somebody in a big group like this who's like, okay, well, I'm tired, I'm not going to take any poles, and then they sit on. And then somebody else sees that person doing that and they go, okay, well, he's not taking poles, I'm going to stop taking poles. So then they stop, and then the whole thing starts to fall apart, people counterattack, and that's why these big groups don't generally work. And that was exactly the case here. This group is a little bit too big, and we never really settle in. So I knew that I had to stay sharp, and I had to save a little bit of energy just to make sure I could make the selection from the selection, because I know there's going to be another group that breaks away from this group. And I was wrong. There really wasn't a group that broke away from this group, but it wasn't from a lack of effort. I mean, we just kept attacking each other relentlessly, like lap after lap after lap. I was sending a few. Lance was sending a few. John was sending a few. Joseph, like, these were just kind of like an every lap feature. We came into this hill, and if there's one thing you guys should have learned at this point, if you're a fan of this channel, it's that consistency is efficiency. And this, even though it's a lot of power, it's not fast. It's not an efficient way to ride. A group of 4 smoothly rotating, taking reasonable pulls at 350, maybe 375 watts on the front is way faster than this style of riding, of just smashing each other into oblivion up this hill every lap. So what ends up happening is we get caught with just a few laps to go, and that's where we're picking up action. And with just 5 laps to go, Dylan sends it going up the hill, takes one look back, and just steps on it. And I make a big mistake here, because I do a half measure, right? I don't commit to the chase. I also don't commit to just sitting in. I kind of just ride on the front. I think the idea at the time was like, okay, let Dylan do his thing. We still have 4.5 kilometers to go. Let's rotate and bring him back. Famous last words. It's a race. Nobody wants to help each other, especially this deep into a race. So what ends up happening is Dylan extends his gap. And then this happens. There it is right there. Car on course. What a drag. So this is one of the many reasons why I thought, can I even make a video about this race? So there's a car on course. Guys, this is something that I wanted to talk about. This is an unsanctioned race. There is no road closure. This is a very quiet little business park on a Sunday morning. But every once in a while, a car shows up. This guy was lost. You can see him on course right now. Clearly, he's lost. He just did a loop around the course and then left. But what ended up happening is this slowed down the chase a little bit. You can see the confusion as a result. And Dylan's gap went out a little bit further. But that's fine because we still have 3 kilometers to go. Clearly, people are still motivated. We're still doing 1,000 watts up this climb. And I think we're still going to be able to close down the gap to Dylan. I'm not sure about it, but it's still looking pretty good that we can shut this gap down. Except now there's another car on course. You see this rider on the left putting his hand up? He was calling for more laps, let's add more laps. Of course, Dylan doesn't know about that. There's the SUV that was on course. He pulled off to the right. But this split our chase group, so now I have to play this terrible game of leapfrog. I have to tack from this group, make my way up to this chase group of 6 or something like that. Dylan's still in front of them, but it's really frustrating because, and I don't fault the motorists, they're just out driving. They must be wondering what is going on. This quiet business park usually has nothing going on a Sunday. And it's true, it usually doesn't have anything going on. So this is the reason I wanted to make the video, is not to show how chaotic the ending was, but I have some ideas on how we can prevent this. But first, the race. Let's just get back to how this race finished, because we're 2 kilometers to go now. I make my way up to this chase group, but it's not chasing anymore. Nobody's motivated to do anything. I think they've all resigned themselves for second place. Dylan's just too strong. He's just off the front, out of sight. And I'm not giving up just yet, though. We're coming into 2 laps to go. I'm going to do one more effort here, because I just want to get a peek and see where Dylan is. And shout out Max. Guys, you guys know Max from LV. So this is Max, also not content with second, kind of sending it here with about 1.5 laps to go back down the hill. But yeah, it's just frustrating because this is the most critical moment in the race, right? We're 1,500 meters to go. If there was a car that came on course, there are marshals. We generally deal with this pretty nicely, but when there's only a couple laps to go, we don't have a system to deal with there being a potential change at the bitter end of this race. We do now. I'm going to get to that in just a second, but I'm going to take a really hard pull here, straight into the headwind, kind of the last thing I want to do, but I don't want to race. I'm not the type who races for a second, so I'm going to smash up this climb. And I'm going to see if I have any takers, and I do. I mean, of course, John comes over the top. This is pretty hard effort for me, guys. 169 beats per minute. You can tell it's hard when it's all single file like this. Now it's 1 lap to go. Dylan's gone. He's won the race. And now it's going to be up to us to figure out, who's going to sprint for second. Or are we even sprinting for second? This is where it gets a little bit confusing because, are we just done? Are we calling it? With the cars and the chaos at the end, I decide to keep on racing. These guys in front of me do as well, but there was just some hesitation and indecision here. You can tell I'm doing 0 watts, basically letting these people, these 2 riders just get away from me. I'm looking, you can tell my shadow. I'm what's going on? We have 1 more to go, right? Yeah, there's the shadow, which tells the story. Joseph keeps riding. We have these other riders who keep going. I'm okay, well, I guess we're still sprinting for second. I don't mind giving it a rip, completing the workout, finishing it off with a sprint. We're 300 meters to go. I'm a little bit further back than I want to be with with only now 200 meters to go. But there is this climb. I'm on the sheltered side. The sheltered side was given to me. So I just kind of stand up. I'm like, well, I may as well sprint it out. And can I catch this rider off the front? I think I do. I get just a really good turn of speed. He was out there for a while by himself. He was losing speed. And, like, I come in for second, maybe? Dylan certainly won. Let's be very clear about that. But here's what I wanted to say about practice races. These things happen when you don't have road closure. It's important to be safe, respect the motorists, and make sure there's no incidents out on the road. And we do have a solution moving forward to prevent this type of thing from happening. We have lap cards. So the idea is the person holding the lap cards has the final say. They can add laps if they want. They can reset the race if they want. Their word is final. And oh my God, we have people still racing thinking there were added laps. So I guess there were 3 winners on the day. But anyway, stay tuned. Get subscribed. We have the entire Tarun Elite Squad coming from the Bay Area. So next week should be nice and spicy. I'll be racing with my VFR teammates. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll catch you in the next one.